Hey class, Mr. Catlin here with lesson 4.0, part B. And yesterday, on Monday, we looked at percentages. Our next unit, which we're going to be working on the week after Thanksgiving, it's all going to be about percentages. And so here's a couple of things that you could look at, kind of like some anchor charts to remind you of what percentages are, how we can find them, steps to find, different strategies that I found from sixth grade teachers as I looked online. So, part over whole, I think I mentioned that in yesterday's video. The word is and the word of are commonly associated with the part and the whole. Like it might say something like, what is 32 out of 40 as a percent? And then you can plug them into the proportion here. You can cross multiply and solve for x like it shows in these examples. You can also have visuals, like we're going to look at one today of a double number line. And you can look at, okay, it's a number out of 100. So how many of the shaded boxes out of the 100 are filled for 37%, 2%, so on and so forth. It also mentions cross, multiply, and divide. So I might mention that strategy as well for the percent proportion. But if you look at this is kind of what I introduced a little bit yesterday. I don't know if you guys are familiar with double number lines, but I broke this one up. And on the bottom, I have the percentage. So these are percentages down here, and these are values up here. And all we're doing is it's asking me to find 20% of 75. So the of or the whole number is your 100%. So it lines up over the 100. And since you're breaking it up into 20s, I counted by 20s on the percents. And what that did is it broke it up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal sections, because 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, there's 5 equal parts. And so every 20% is a fifth. And so we can take 75 and divide by 5, and it would tell us what this number would be, because there's 5 of them. So when you do 5 into 75 and you look at the remainder that you get, it goes into that 5 times. So you can see that this is 15, 30, 45, 60. It's kind of like finding the skip count number that matches with the percentage. And then you know that 20% is what 20% of 75 is 15. So you got to have a visual of it there as an example. But what we're going to do today is we're going to use some of these strategies with this problem that I've posted, and every one of your cool down problems is just like it. All right. So if a store is having a 20% off sale on all their merchandise, Ma buys one item and saves $13. What was the original price of her purchase? So I'm going to start my first example. I'm going to do this with the percent proportion. If you recall, it was part over whole equals percent out of 100. So to set up this particular problem with the numbers that go in our proportion, we would put our percentage in the percent place. So 20 would go over the 100. And then the 13, we have to ask ourselves, is 13 the part or is it the whole? And the way that I think about this in word problems, like, is the number that's given everything or is it a part of everything? And in this case, she buys an item and saves $13. So that means she saved part of the price. The whole price is what we're trying to find. So we're going to put 13 as our part, and we don't know what the bottom number is going to be, right? So that makes that a little complicated to find. Now, if you looked at that anchor chart that I had before, there's a strategy where you can cross multiply and divide to find the answer. All right, which is a perfectly good strategy. Some of you might have learned this in elementary school. You can multiply the numbers that are diagonal from each other, 13 times 100, and you take that product and you divide by the other number that's left over, which in this case is 20. And that will tell you what the question mark is. So we can, do that and then set up the division to going into 130. It will go into that 6 times, right? Because 2 times 6 is 12. Difference of this, and 2 will go into that 5 times. So we can see that 20% off, that $13 was out of a $65 item. All right. And just to kind of continue with what we've been doing, let's look at a different strategies approach to that. Let's say that we were doing the double number line that we saw earlier. If we had this in double number line form and percents were down here, let's put the 100 and the 0 on there. And let's put our, excuse me, let's put our value on this line. All right. We started off by not knowing what the 100% total was. This was our question mark, right? But the percentage we did know was 20. So like we saw in that example, we could break this up into 20, 40, 60, and 80%. These are all percentages. And we wanted to know this. We knew that this mark was the 20%. We knew that they saved $13 at 20%. We just didn't know how many of those it took to get to the full 100. So we could kind of skip count by 13s. That would be 26. This one would be 39. And then this one would be 52. Right? And then the last one would be what we got for our answer, which was 65. And so that's another way to visualize that 65 was the whole when 13 was the 20%. And lastly, all right, the one that I showed you on Monday, this works as well. You can make a value versus a percent table. We knew from this problem that the $13 value was a 20% relationship. So we could have, from the get-go, found out what the constant of proportionality between these two were by dividing 20 by 13. And if you do that, I've got a calculator right here. If you do 20 and you divide by 13, you get an ugly number. So let's go the other route. Let's do 13 divided by 20. That gives me 0.65. So that actually tells me the number that brings me that this way. 0.65 will take me from the percent back to the value. Now, we knew the percent, so this actually helps us out knowing that number. We knew the percent we were trying to find was 100. So to go back from there to there, multiplying 100 times 0.65 gives us the answer also of 65, because 65 hundredths of 100 is 65. So that makes sense as well. Just another way to find that answer by using a different strategy. And that's the lesson for today. Don't forget to complete that cool down. And if I don't see you in the Zoom because I saw you yesterday or you don't get to make it, have a wonderful and happy Thanksgiving.